Yo, 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 yo. Welcome to another episode of Open for Discussion. I'm your boy, Seymour Reese Ball, and I am really excited about today. But before we get into who we got coming up on the stage and gonna hang out with me for a few minutes, y'all know what to do when y'all see the thing scroll apart. Subscribe and be a part of the community so you can tap in into all the amazing conversations and interviews that we have coming up. I don't want you to miss these power packed people that we have that will be speaking life and their travels and their destinations and everything that they've went through to make it to where they are. But today, y'all, we have a young lady who is trailblazing out in these mental health streets. She's out here doing it big. She's out here creating spaces for people to share their story on mental health and grief. And she's an advocate. She is in a PhD program pursuing her doctorate. She's out here doing big things, and we get the chance to hang out with her. And I'm really excited about it because I know she has an amazing story. So, without further ado, y'all know how we do it. Kick that intro. But welcome. So I'm introducing to some and presenting to other Miss Lolita Geaux Burgess. How are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome. I was glad when you reached out to me and said that you wanted to speak with me on your podcast. I'm excited about it.
Well, I'm glad you took the time to come and hang out with me. So I normally have a story as to how most of my guests pull up, and most of my guests have come from either TikTok um, or Instagram. So we were in a room or a panel together, and we just start and we were talking, and then she asked me to be a part of a grief panel, and then I was a part of her grief panel, and then from there we just kind of started following each other, jumping into each other's room. No, I think her very first live was she was doing something on Chat GPT, and I jumped into her live, and she was going through some prompts and some things on Chat GPT, and we kind of started going from there. And then next thing you know, hey, she asked me to be on a couple of her panels. We sit on a couple of panels. Then she asked my wife to be on a couple of panels because she's out here in these TikTok streets making a difference and doing big things. And so she is pulling people into her platform. And so she's asked me a couple of times to be on her platform. And so I asked her to pull up so we can hear about her amazing story. And here we are, right here.
Yes, on this
So,
lovely
so
Thursday
where are you
evening.
currently at? Where you currently reside?
I live in Marietta, Georgia.
Oh, I did not know you was in Marietta, Georgia.
Yes,
One
I've
of
been
my
in.
favorite restaurants is in Marietta.
Which one is that?
I done forgot. It was right on the tip of my tongue. The diner.
Oh,
Um,
Marietta Diner.
yeah,
Oh
the
yeah,
Marietta
yeah.
Diner.
Okay, I
Yeah,
know it.
that is one of my favorite restaurants. We used to live in Swanee, and
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah, and one of my homeboys, he has a church not too far from Marietta, and so we've been in the area a lot. And the Marietta Diner, that was my favorite restaurant.
Did you actually know that there's a chain of restaurants? The people that own the diner actually have a chain of restaurants.
I knew they owned the cakes, the cake piece, but I didn't know they had a chain of
Yeah,
restaurants.
they
No.
have an Italian restaurant, Pasta Bella. They have a steakhouse, and then I think it's called Cherokee County Steakhouse or something. And then they have Marietta Fish Market.
Mm.
So when you
Next time I'm
go,
down there, I'm gonna have to go check out the fish market because
yeah, they have seafood nachos. That's like the thing I like to get when I go there. The seafood
oh,
nachos.
that sounds good. That sounds really good. So you are in Marietta. Was you born and raised in Marietta?
No, I've actually lived in Georgia for over a little bit over 25 years now. My dad's retired military, so I've lived all over the world actually. I
Oh,
was
okay.
actually born in England.
Oh, do you have a British accent?
I when I was younger, because we actually lived there twice, two different stints. So when I first came back, like in '81, I had an accent then, but it's disappeared. Living in the, going to New Mexico and then moving to the South after that, I have
You
a
lost your
distinct.
English, your British accent.
It's not there anymore. I wish it was actually. It'd be kind of cool.
I be trying to throw my little British accent in there. Now, so you're military. So your dad was military. Where do you fall in the rank of your siblings?
I
In
have
the
one
pecking order.
sibling. One sibling. He's 2 years and 5 days older than me. We shared a lot of joint birthday parties growing up.
Okay, yeah, I understand that because me and my middle sister birthday was 6 days apart.
Okay.
So, you know, one of us didn't get a birthday.
kind
One of
kind
us
of
had to share their birthday because it was 6 days apart. But okay, so you're the baby.
correct.
Okay. Do you and your brother have a good relationship?
For the most part, but my brother's retired. He's also retired military, and he's retired Navy. And because of everything that's happened with him through his military process, he has PTSD and some other things going on. So, sometimes he's not communicating. But when the opportunity presents itself, I take a full advantage of it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm an ex Navy too. I was stationed in San Diego
He was
for
there twice, I think. I believe he was there twice, if I remember correctly.
yeah, San Diego was cool. So you're the youngest. It's just two of y'all. Your dad was military. Where so where were where was you born?
England.
You did say that. You just say that. So how long were you in England prior to y'all um relocating when he got restationed somewhere?
So I think I was probably about 3 years old, maybe. Of course, I don't remember it, so I never really asked that question before. But I
Uh-huh.
know we moved to Ohio after that, Columbus, Ohio, and then when we left Columbus, we went back to England again. So we were there two different times, and then
Okay.
that after that time, we moved back to the states in '81, and that was in New Mexico.
Okay. So with being traveling like that, was it hard for you to make sustainable relationships when you were younger, like, you know, maybe around 10 or 11? Was it hard for you to create those long lasting relationships because you knew in 2 or 3 years or 4 years that y'all were going to be relocating to another spot?
Well, at 10 or 11, that's when I was in New Mexico, and I actually had some pretty good friends then. But my dad retired. I think it was in 86, 1986. He retired. So after that, we moved to Louisiana, and so I still have like connections on Facebook and stuff, but I don't have any long term relationships with the people that the group of people that I knew from when I lived there. And it's funny that you asked that question because I was speaking to someone on a live recently. We were like in the panel together, just an informal situation, and she was saying, that a lot of times you don't really, it's like the way the habits that you develop as a result of that. I never really thought about it, like how does that translate into your personal relationships and stuff like that, because
Hmm.
even now I have a few friends from college, like my roommates from college. I stay in touch with them pretty well. They don't live here. Of course, they live in, well, not of course they live in Louisiana. So when I go home, I'm in touch with them in period and from time to time. But I don't feel like I do a good job of maintaining the relationship. And that's something I said I was going to try to do better this year. And I'm failing miserably. Like, we'll just talk to each other randomly. It's not a consistent time that we talk to each other or anything like that. And I think it kind of like the person was mentioning in the live, it probably traces back to just being short term situations, So,
Right.
but I'm my goal is to do better. I don't think that translates into the personal, but who knows? It may, because
It
I know that
does.
in personal, I mean, I don't have a whole lot of tolerance for. I'm a no nonsense type person. I always have been. So yeah, I'll give it a try. And if I see that it's not going anywhere, I'm not wasting my time. I'm like, especially now, I'm over 50. I don't have that kind of time. You know, it's not. I don't have the time to try to talk about building the person up and that build a bear and all this other stuff. I mean, I just want nobody's perfect, and I can work with somebody, but we can't be starting from scratch. It's like we are in our 50s. We can't be doing that.
Well, the hard part is, you know, um, especially at a young age, if you're constantly moving, it's easy to develop an attachment disorder. It's easy to not really go all in relationships because those relationships are going to end. And so it's better for you to protect yourself to say, okay, I'm not going to get hurt every 4 years. I'm going to be relocating every 3 years. I'm going to be relocating. Oh, okay. Relationships.
But if you will talk to some of the like I have some. I think I've heard you talk about how you're like a sort of like a advisor to some of your female friends or whatever. So I have a
Mhm.
couple of guy friends that have known me for quite a long time, like 10 plus years or whatever. Yeah, 10 plus years. I would say both of them, and they will tell you if even though it may I have a low tolerance. Once I'm in, I'm in. Like I'm ride or die. Once we establish that this is that we're gonna do this, I'm definitely ride or die. Probably even to my own detriment at sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, because it's one of those things where you try to hold on to those valuable relationships because they're few and far between.
Yeah, yeah, that's probably exactly what it is. You sound more like a therapist than a coach, Maurice over here, or
But
minister. You sound like a therapist.
I've been doing this for a while. Just I hear different. I've been doing this like for over 20 some years, but I just hear stuff a little different. But so what was life like um prior to you going to Arizona? You were in Germany, correct?
New Mexico. I
New
was
Mexico.
in
I mean,
England.
yeah, you was in New Mexico.
In
Before you go into New Mexico, where were you at? You were in Germany,
Lake and Heath, England.
England. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, how was that as far as culturally? Were you accepted? Was it hard? Was you picked on? I know it was a military base, so sometimes it's all inclusive, but sometimes it's not.
Yeah, so for the most part, we lived on base for the most part, but there's a short period of time where we lived on the they say on the economy. So we did live on the economy for a while. But actually, I have really like fond memories of England, and even as an adult, I did my MBA at the University of Florida, and one semester I did a exchange program at Manchester Business School. So I even went back there as an adult because I really liked it so much, and I really would like to short term, do some sort of project or something there.
Mhm.
I really like it there. I don't know if I would want to live there permanently, potentially, but I wouldn't do that unless my parents weren't living. My parents are up in age. They're in their late 60s. Excuse me, late 70s. What am I talking about? They're in their late 70s. My dad will be 79 in January, so I'm not really doing something wild, going off somewhere and not being accessible if something happens or whatever. So, but I really liked England a lot. I like even when I went back, the people I was running into there, they thought Americans were cool. It's a
Mhm.
different culture, definitely a different culture. Because I mean, at that time, they maybe that right before I came there or close to that time frame, they had outlawed um, firearms. So the only people that were able to use them were the police officers. Like nobody could possess a firearm or whatever. So their
Mhm.
crime rate, when you compare their crime rate to ours, it's actually a lot better there. And I don't know if it has anything to do with that, because the thing about it is somebody wants to get a hold of something, they're going to get a hold of it, but illegally. But I enjoyed England when I was there. So but the transition, it wasn't difficult. Leaving there and then going to New Mexico. I feel like everything fell into place like it should, and I didn't really have a problem making friends or anything like that.
So when you landed in New Mexico, you said you was about 10 or 11.
10, correct.
You was 10. Okay. So being 10 years old, fifth, sixth grade, transitioning into that's another culture shift.
It is,
Where
yeah. It's yeah because it's right before middle school, and I always did fairly well in school. But one thing I thought about this recently is that a lot of times educators pigeonhole you, like they put you in. They think these are what your capabilities are, and this is where they put you. And so I was
hmm
just like a regular, regular student or whatever. But I think in fifth grade there was a shift. I think my teacher identified that that I was a good reader and all those other great things, and going from fifth grade to sixth grade. In sixth grade, I made straight A's. Like for the first time ever, I made straight A's in class. Period, the whole year. And I think I had perfect attendance. Straight A's, and I played sports and everything like that. So that was like a turning point for me, sixth grade. At there, I think at some nowadays, I think that's considered middle school. But the
yeah.
way the school was set up there, it wasn't. It was still part of elementary school, and then we had middle school, which is seventh and eighth grade. And because the population of students was so great, they had to split the high school into two. They had the ninth and the 10th grade, mid
hmm
high, and then in the 11th and the 12th grade, senior high.
Okay. Okay. So as you're navigating through this space, what would let's say, okay, sixth grade, seventh grade, we're seventh grade. What were some of the things that you were like kind of trying to piece together culturally? Because you're in New Mexico, you're still probably a minority in that space, coming from a space where you was a minority. Was it just easy to make that adjustment because you had already been in that space?
Well, in New Mexico, there's a lot of Hispanic people that live there, so
Uh-huh.
this is like a different type. They're not there. I would say they were close to being the majority in the area where I live. So most of my friends, I've always had friends of all cultures. So, but then I would say most of my friends were Hispanic. And
Okay.
I played softball. I played a couple different sports, but I played soccer, and then I played softball. And I played softball like on a traveling team and stuff like that, which is different for, I guess now not so different, but just like baseball and softball are not as
Mm-hmm.
popular to me. They're not as popular in our community as other sports are. So that was kind of different. Soccer has become more popular, so it's not that big a deal. But the sports helped a lot. Met people through sports, and I was always a tomboy, so I guess the biggest thing for me is just as a tomboy, just not really necessarily having boys interested in that kind of stuff, So that I would say that was the biggest thing because you go to dance, and I can remember this one guy in my class, Michael Benson. I think we're friends on Facebook now. Like nobody wanted to dance with me when we were at the dance or whatever. But this is a blonde haired, blue eyed Caucasian little guy, and he would always make sure that I had somebody to dance with when I went to when we had school dances and stuff like that, or just sometimes in PE we would do dance as well. So I could always count on him.
Always good to have that one to come through.
Right. Hey,
The-
he helped me maintain my self esteem. I would say probably, because nothing like not no nobody picking you to dance with. Not that it matters. That's probably why I can't dance now. It's because nobody picked me
you
when I was
can't
younger.
dance.
I cannot.
Oh,
I don't have any rhythm whatsoever.
well, yeah. I mean, you had, yeah, probably not been in the places where a bunch of rhythm was popping
That,
off.
that's something to think about. I never thought about it that way, but yeah. I mean,
You
I'm
know,
sure people I went to school with could dance, but I just never really acted. I can do some line dancing, but other than that,
hey, that'll get you through though. If you can line dance, that'll
yeah,
definitely
I can pick up the
definitely
line
get you
dances,
through.
but the regular dances, nah, don't count on me.
So, so do you have a good relationship, or growing up, did you have a great relationship with your parents?
Oh, absolutely. Like I always felt, first of all, I was always, they didn't really have to, I wasn't getting in trouble and doing all that kind of stuff. Like when people talk about being rebellious and those kind of things,
hmm
up through high school, I think I broke curfew like one time, and I can even remember it. Vividly remember it. It wasn't like a bad situation when I got home, but I only broke curfew. How many people can say they only broke curfew one time growing up?
I definitely can't say that.
Okay. And then, as far as school goes, my parents didn't have to tell me, did you do your homework? Did you do, they didn't have to do that. I just like came home, did my homework. When it came to time to go to college, I figured out what schools I wanted to apply for. They didn't have to say, "Did you fill out your application?" Everything I did, I didn't really have any help from my counselors. I felt like, that's one thing that was like missing because I was like a good student in high school, and yeah, definitely a good student in high school. I graduated seventh in my class, so I had like a
Wow.
3.7 or a 3.8. GPAs are different now than they were then because you don't have as many. We didn't have as many opportunities to get above 4.0 like they do now. Because I think the only way you could do it is to take those AP classes, and I think
Yeah.
our school might have like three or four of them. And that's another thing that was never really pushed. Like nobody ever said, "Would you be interested in?" That it just wasn't there. But I just did what I could from from what I knew and made the best of the situation.
So what was one of your biggest challenges um in high school? What was something that gave you a like a light came on? If you're already a good student, and being a good student puts you in a place that you can really fly under the radar in some other things. Because if you're a good student, you don't have behavior issues and things like that. But what was a challenge or something that kind of steered you into an into something that says, "Oh man, I ain't know life was like this."
I think about politics. So when I moved, to Louisiana, I was a sophomore, getting ready to start my sophomore year. And the biggest thing that I experienced that I can remember is there was a club called Beta Club. Beta
Hmm.
Club, you had to have certain grades and all. And I met the requirements, but it was like a clique. It was a clique. If you didn't know the right people, you wouldn't be able to get into it. And eventually, I think right before my senior year, I was able to get into it. But I just had to. I guess I had to get to know people because I mean I think there's like a voting process if I remember correctly so long ago. But just so happens I think one person that was in Beta Club was a cousin, but he's not like a direct cousin, maybe like a second or third cousin. Like I believe
Hmm.
his dad and my dad might have been cousins. He was in Beta Club and he was pretty popular, smart guy. He's still smart. He's Ronnie Johnson, and then he was friends with some other people. So I eventually met enough people to where I'd be able to get in. But if you don't, it's like if you don't know the right, it's kind of like in life. Some of these jobs that people get and everything. If you don't know the right people, it's like it's about who you know, and that started in high school. And that was the biggest thing for me was Beta Club. Getting into Beta Club was like a big deal, and it was difficult for me to get in because I was a new person.
Yeah, I think networking should be incorporated in just into a class. But you learned it at a young age, and I'm pretty sure that it you kind of probably took the pattern and applied that to other areas. So you graduate. What years you graduate?
89.
Oh, you graduated in '89.
Yeah, what year did you graduate?
92. I know I said it like I graduated like 90 or I mean like in 2000. No, I graduated in 92.
Okay, yeah, so you're just, I mean, yeah, I think you
Yeah,
said you're 50.
you was a senior and I was a freshman. Or
Okay.
you were yeah,
And plus
or
I start
no.
the other thing is when we started school in Ohio, you have to be your birthday has to fall before a certain date in order for you to start that school year. And my birthday's in December, so my brother
Mm,
and I started school later than like our cousins were starting at 4. Some of them were getting, they wasn't strict about the birth certificates in certain states. So a lot of my cousins they were graduating at 16 and from high school and stuff like that. And but we're here we are starting late, but I think there's a benefit to that as well because from a maturity standpoint, I think
yeah,
somebody's going to be a little bit more mature than some when I waited that extra half year to get in than the other
for
students would have
sure.
been.
I mean, my son graduated at 17 and yeah. We looking back, we kind of wish we would have held him back as opposed to pushing him up a year. But
Oh,
it's
okay.
working out now. But yes, definitely, I think that there's a definite bit. There's a book called The Outliers that does a case study of kids who graduated who were younger in their class and kids who are older in their class, and they do this 20-year case study. Oh, and follow these kids who were in those two different things. And surprisingly, the kids that graduated younger actually turned out to be a little bit more successful than the kids that were older, because the attention that was applied to them, because everybody knew that they were younger, and so
Okay.
they got the the special treatment. Now, so you graduated high school. Where'd you go to college? Where'd you do your undergrad at?
Undergrad, LSU.
You when I see Go, I only think of LSU when I see that.
Okay.
So I knew, I was like, oh, she got to be in weed, because don't nobody really spell anything like that. So you went to LSU as your undergrad. Now, how was college life without the restrictions of and the responsibility of your parents? So, like at home, you had to do certain things, and you follow certain rules. But did you get turned up when you got to college?
Well, actually, it just so happens LSU is not far from where my parents live. So my first year, I actually lived at home, and I just drove to school every year. Excuse me, every day. But then the second year, they had some on-campus apartments, and one of my good friends from high school, we got an apartment. She had just graduated from high school because she was a year behind me. We got an apartment together on campus, so it was like right behind the baseball stadium.
Was you a partier?
No, I wasn't. I just always been kind of, like a not. I would do something at the end of the semester. I was always real serious about what I was doing. So, I know people that came in on scholarship, which I did come on scholarship. I had a tuition waiver, and I had a couple of schools I could have gone to, which would have been Dillard University in New Orleans,
Uh
as
huh.
well as Florida State and Grambling. My uncle, my mom's brother, he actually played football there, so I was kind of interested in Grambling a little bit. Dillard, sort of, kind of, and Florida State really interested in, but it's out of state. Out of state tuition. Those
Right.
kind of things. So my parents were like, if you stay here, we can help you if something goes down. If you goes, not saying we're not going to help you, but it'd be a lot more difficult to get to you if you're in Florida versus here. So, so I did LSU, and it was, I mean, my college years were good. Like once a semester, there would be things throughout the semester because I was in a service fraternity, Alpha Phi Omega, so it's a co-ed service fraternity. So we did a lot of service projects and stuff
Hmm.
like that. Then we would have events from time to time, but I would just get and celebrate a little bit at the end of the semester. Kind of like celebrating
Yeah, I
the
made it through the end of the
accomplishment.
semester.
Yeah,
Let's turn up a
exactly.
little bit,
Right. So,
then back to
like I,
business.
but I was serious, like I said, and I stayed. I was on a 4-year program. I wasn't there indefinitely, like a lot of people that I know, and some people came in on scholarships that were larger than mine. And after the first year, they didn't have a scholarship anymore because they wasn't focusing, not necessarily partying, but wasn't focusing either. Not doing what they're supposed to be doing. So for the most part, I've been always been a disciplined person. There are some things I need to work on from a discipline standpoint, but it definitely helped, going into college because I didn't have any problems with. I made, I think, maybe two C's, 2 or 3 C's the whole time I was in college. The rest A's and B's, and I was, the last C I got, I was just that was like, there was a particular professor in the journalism program that my roommate. I had two sets of roommates in college. So my original one, and then when she moved out, I have the second set of roommates. Was multiple people that I'm one of them that I'm still good in touch with, good friends with now. But she used to tell me about this particular professor, like, oh, you Bernice Morris this and Bernice Morris that. And it's like, come on, Casey, you can't be that bad, man. I'm like, I'm getting ready to have my graduation party and I get my grades and I am so pissed. Like, I can't even enjoy my party because I got a C in that class. And she been telling me about the guy the whole time. And I'm thinking it's just her. And this guy gives me a C. And I was just over it.
So you kind of been on a straight and narrow like your whole life.
Let's say straight and narrow. I try to. That's what I just funny that I just did a video about what is a good person because K Short did a video earlier and I did a reply. I did a stitch to his video, but he
Uh-huh.
was talking about in terms of relationships. There was a period in my life, a couple of periods in my life. One in particular was like after, not long after my divorce, and then also. like after rejection. I don't know people. We talk about this in K Short's live about approaching, letting the person know you're interested. There's only been twice in my life that I've ever done that. So being that the outcome was not good either time, the likelihood of me telling somebody that I'm interested in them without them telling me first is not good.
So were you dating in high school and in
Now,
college?
in high school, that's the first time it happened was in high school. That's funny that you said that. So
Uh
there's this particular guy that was in high school. I'm not gonna say his name, but of course I remember his name because you remember those things. But
huh.
he was a football player, and I just liked him. I thought he was cool and everything, and I told him how I felt, and he wasn't feeling the same way. Like he wasn't into. I was a tomboy, and then I was also even in high school. I was never small. Like I've never been a skinny person or anything like that. So even in high school, I was probably like a size 12 or something like that, somewhere around there. So I wasn't his cup of tea. So that's my first. I think that's the first time I can say that I was rejected by somebody. And then once as an adult, somebody that I had known, for a few years, and I was trying to get the right timing because they were in between relationships. And when I
Hmm.
did say something, guess what? They were back in that relationship that they were in and out of all the time. So nothing ever happened with that situation. And then after that, I
So,
probably.
so so let's look let's go to the how do you think the rejection in high school played out? Like, what do you think spawned from that? Did it cause you to really become reclusive, more
I
reclusive?
wouldn't say it caused me to be reclusive. It just put me in the mindset I'm not gonna do that again. Like I'm not gonna let some guy know that I like him if I like him because of what I experienced. And then I had a conversation with one of my other friends who knows this person. Is the second person I'm talking about. She knows the person, so I had a conversation with her. It's like if you like him, just let him know you like him. And so right before that happened, maybe several months before, I didn't see. I didn't even know he was in a relationship. We used to work together, by the way. We used to work together, but he got let go, which is unfairly let go. It's like a downsizing situation versus a firing situation. But when he got fired, he went up to this chick at work and kissed her, and I'm like, I'm like, what the hell? I didn't even know they were in a relationship or anything. I was just like flabbergasted. Like what? He didn't have anything to lose because hey, he ain't gonna be there anymore. But yeah, so it
Right.
was it was much. They were like a in on again off again type situation. And I've never done that. Like if I'm in a relationship with somebody, if it doesn't work out, I'm not doing that back and forth thing. I just never done it. So I didn't know it
So
was one of the.
what was your was you dating in college? Did you have
No, I
what
never. I
was
dated. I went.
what was the scene like for you in college? Did you were you so was you so locked in to like your schoolwork that you just really didn't pay attention to anything else? Or
I
were
mean,
you out here
I
and
had,
you had
I had friends, but as far as dating, nah. That's like they're in college. Probably I could count on one hand, probably the number of times I went out on a date. And it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't. It just didn't happen. It wasn't like I was telling people no or anything like that. It just wasn't. The opportunity wasn't presenting itself. I would say.
you was about that tunnel vision, and then hey, this you if you've always been a no nonsense kind of person and it's college, you gonna come across a lot of
Yeah,
nonsense.
I did pledge in college, by the way. So I haven't
You
been
did?
active, but I pledged Zeta when I was in college, and my line name was So Serious. So that
So
gives you an idea.
serious.
So
And I was
serious.
gonna ask you if you pledged because that will kind of open you up to being more social and meeting people and getting out. Um, I got some really good friends that are Zetas, and yeah. So you went through the pledge process. You became Zeta. You can't dance, so you wasn't stepping.
I did. What are you talking about? Yeah, I got myself
You said you
together.
can't dance.
Yeah, dancing and stepping are two different. Yeah, those are two different things. It's different
Okay,
dancing, but yeah,
so you can stroll.
I can. Yeah, I don't know if we strolled or not, but I can step. I can. The form. The routine that they put together. I was able to do. I was able to participate. It wasn't like, oh, you gonna have to sit down because you're not getting it. Wasn't like that or anything.
Okay, so we just we're in college. You pledged. You at what point after you graduate? What'd you get into after you graduated?
So when I graduated, this maybe that summer I did an internship. So I did an internship at a paper in Mississippi on the coast actually. So I was living like right close to the beach, right leading up to my senior year in high school. They had there's a college called William Carey College on the coast, and if you ever been on I-10, you probably seen some signs for it before. You may have never seen the college, but there's like a sign for it on I-10 when you're going through like Gulfport and Biloxi area. So I did my summer internship there. And then when I graduated, I took a 1 year internship, and that was in North Alabama. So I was in like
Mm.
Florence and Muscle Shoals area. I don't know if you know anything about that area or
Hmm.
not.
We lived in Alabama for a minute.
Oh wow, okay, yeah. So I lived up there for 1 year, and then after that was getting ready to come to an end, I had several interviews lined up, and one of them was with Tuscaloosa News, which is of course that's where yeah, University of Alabama is, and that's like supposed to be a great place to live and everything. But I went there, man. I felt like stepped in a time warp or something. Like I did. I was like, what? It was like felt like I was in a I wasn't even living in the '60s, but like are they like stuck in the '60s or something? So they offered me the position, but I didn't take it. I was actually a sports writer, by the way. So I was a sports writer and copy editor for the newspaper that I was working at, and then that was going to be the same thing with, and actually would have been eventually probably could have turned into something good. But if you don't like somewhere, it doesn't really to me it doesn't like make a whole lot of sense to go somewhere you're not going to like. So I
Right.
came back and told my manager, I was like, oh, they offered me the position, I turned it down. He's like, you're not in a position to be turning positions down. Like you get a job. So
Right.
so I ended up getting a position with a smaller paper, which is probably like an hour from Jacksonville, Palatka, Florida. You probably never heard of it before, but it's a little small
Never.
town on the St. Johns River. So fishing, they have like fishing tournaments and stuff there from time to time. And that was the same thing there, just a smaller newspaper working there. It's like a two-person team, me and this other guy, Andy Hall. And I did that, I guess it's for like a year or so, and then a job came up with a larger paper that's a little bit further out down in Florida, Ocala, Florida, which is like horse country. They have like a lot of horse farms and stuff in that area, and I took that position. And while I was there, that's when I decided, you know what? Thinking about how much money I was making, I'm like, I'm making this much money after 4 years of college. My brother, who's in the military, is making more money than I am. I need to
Hmm.
reevaluate my life at this point. So that's when I decided to apply for the MBA program at the University of Florida, and I applied, and I was able to, and I was accepted and everything, and eventually they actually gave me a fellowship and everything as well. So the first
Wow, that's
year,
awesome.
First year I was still working, which they don't even want you working because it was a full time MBA program. They kind of treated like law school back then. It's different now for
Hmm.
MBA programs, but back then they would want you to be completely devoted to the program. So the first semester I was still working, and then they offered me the fellowship, and then I resigned from my job and everything. I had like some tuition reimbursement from the job, so they had paid for the first semester, and then there wasn't no stipulations or strings attached or anything like that. So just moved on to started that exchange program that I mentioned to you earlier. Started that
Hmm.
after the first year completed. So the first year I was commuting because Ocala's not. It's like an hour, 45 minutes to an hour to get to Ocala to Gainesville from Ocala. So I commuted, and then going into the second year, I really by the time I came back uh, from the exchange program, I only had one semester left. So it's a 2 year program. Did the first year commuting, and then the second year, 1 year overseas, one semester overseas, and then I move into a dorm for a semester to complete the last semester. And next thing you know, I'm walking away with my MBA.
Oh man. So like I'm just hearing your journey and your walk. It's been pretty clean and cut, um, straight down. With some detours here and there, but it sounds pretty like you planned it all out and you just executed your plan.
Right, right, yeah. So
That,
and then,
that's
but
how it's that's what it sounds like. This happened. Like what were your what were some of the things that in this journey, now you out here, did you experience any kind of um racism? Did you you
Oh my
you're a
God,
black
yeah.
female in a predominantly male um job.
Yeah,
What?
so not necessarily job, but after finishing the MBA program, I'm putting fillers out, doing interviews and stuff, and there's a company that was in New Orleans area. I couldn't even I probably wouldn't even be able to remember the name if I thought I could remember because this was so long ago. But went on a job interview and they were just like in shock because they're not really paying that much attention to the name. They're just looking at I got a degree from LSU and then I have a degree from Florida, an MBA, and I come in and I am not what they were expecting. So
Right, right,
so that's I mean as a whole I wouldn't say I've experienced a lot of racism, but that was the one situation that I can say I will always remember was that situation, and they come and there could have been other situations that sometimes you're just not aware of it. You don't it happens, behind closed doors. Like everybody can
right.
put on the right face and everything like that because like in the MBA program, the one thing I feel like I didn't do that I should have done a better job of is just meeting with the career people, career counseling center and that kind of thing. Because when I left, I didn't have a job. How do you leave a good MBA program because they were ranked and they still are? It's like one of the top for public schools, one of the top 25 in the country, I believe, for the public schools, their program is. So how do you leave an MBA program and not have a job? So, and then, it's a lot of times I, don't want to fault the school, but I'm like, you didn't do what as I become more emotionally intelligent, I have to own my part. And I know that I didn't do anything. Like I didn't do what I was supposed to do to try to make that. It's not their job to hunt me down and make me sit down and apply. You do it, make these connections. That's on me, so
Right.
that's the one thing that I feel like I did wrong during my during that time of my life is just not planning. I stayed in touch with people and some of the people I went to school with, and they're doing extremely well. I'm connected like on LinkedIn with a couple of them, but I just didn't do a good job of, the one time I wasn't planning like I needed to. You talked about planning earlier, mapping everything out. Now I'm probably over the top when it comes to that kind of stuff, but at that time I wasn't. And maybe that's why I am the way I am now is because what I went through then, leaving there, just regular job, even though I got an MBA, making a decent salary, but I'm making the kind of money I thought I was going to be making after getting the MBA, so just working regular jobs, eventually got married. And
Okay, let's talk about that. How old were you when you got married?
I was, let's see what year. I was 22. No, excuse me, 32. I was 32.
Okay, I was gonna say 22. Woo, who gets married at 22?
No,
So
not
32.
20, 32.
Now, here's a question. Did were your parents a good example of a married couple?
For the most part, I would say nothing's perfect in any relationship,
Right.
so for the most part, my parents have been married for like, getting ready, they just had 58 years. So, I mean, they've been together a long time.
That's
And so
crazy.
for the most part, I saw good and bad. I see things that that I wouldn't do in my relationship. But other things like from financial standpoint, learned some really good financial principles from my mom and my dad and the way that they live their life. The early part of their life, don't don't do a lot of spending. They've never been the people that want to keep up with the Joneses or anything like that. Just save as much as you can, buy stuff, but don't be over the top. I'm not the same as them, but I've learned from them. I'm working on it, but yeah. So for the most part, I had a good example to follow. Not 100% good, but I would say
Do
80% good
you feel
probably.
that you learned how to be a wife from your mom?
Somewhat, but when it comes to what I know now, when it comes to relationships, like the emotional intelligence part of it, the arguing. People argue. I've never been a person to argue, and I'm still not that way. But that was part of the example that I did experience. And my parents argued. I guess most parents argue, but I
Hmm.
didn't. I try not to be the person that I guess even though I didn't really know a lot about emotional intelligence when I was married, I wasn't trying to start arguments or pick fights or anything like that. So for the most part, I feel like I had a good example, but that wasn't a perfect example. I don't think for sure.
Did so so you get married at 32. How'd y'all meet, and what was that like? What where were you at? What were you doing, and how did y'all meet?
So, interestingly enough, C. Maurice Ball, I was a youth ministry leader at the church that I used to go to that was over in Decatur, Georgia. So I was a youth
Okay.
ministry leader, and it was Halloween. Actually, it was Halloween, and we don't do Halloween. We give it some other theme, some other kind of name, like a little get
Uh-huh.
together for the kids, and serve food and candy and all that other stuff. Trunk. I don't know. I don't think they call it
Trunk
trunk
or
or treat.
treat
It's
and all
something
that
along
other.
those lines. But yeah, so I was there, and then I can still remember. Like I saw, I was doing my volunteer thing, and I see this guy in the kitchen. Like, who's that? So I met my husband through church. He was he went to he had started going to the church, and I was already active, and he was volunteering, doing a lot of stuff with the men's ministry and stuff like that, and anything related to repair and that kind of stuff he did as well, because he's very good with his hands in terms of he could pretty much build a house from scratch and tear a car down and put it back together from scratch as well, which is my I guess they say you kind of mirror your what your parents are like. My dad has always been very mechanical. He's a jet
Uh-huh.
engine mechanic, jet engine supervisor when he retired. So very mechanical for most of his life. Worked on his own vehicles and stuff until he got a certain age. He wasn't. He's still a handyman very much, but not as far as that like Charles was. He wasn't like that, like building houses and stuff. But I can think of my garbage disposal in the house that I live in now. It was every a few years back there was something wrong with it, and I had a couple people look at it, it's like, no, you need to replace it. You need to replace it. Anytime something goes on with the garbage disposal, my dad comes in town, it's working again. Like I ain't got to worry about it. Yeah, so I think he said this last time. He's like, they're only designed to last a certain number of years. You probably need to go ahead and replace. It's past his lifetime. I've been living here almost 9 years now, so it's past the life of the garbage disposal. So if you need to get one, get it. So, but yeah, so it's kind of like I said, I met somebody that was kind of like a hands-on person, like my dad was, and the relationship seemed like it was going to be a good idea, but it didn't work out. So
Okay,
it's
so what was he did he have good examples?
mm, I don't think so now. His parents are still together. As far as I know, they're still living. I'm not in touch with him or anything anymore. But as far as I know, his parents are still living, and they've been married all that time. But there is some stuff that growing up, like things were different then, like from where I grew up, because like he lived in the Athens, Georgia area, which is where UGA
Mm-hmm.
is, but like out in the country, and
Mm-hmm.
their
It is very
parents
country out there.
they would stay with their grandparents like during the week. They would stay with their grandparents, and then their parents would work, and then they would get them on the weekend or whatever. So is
Yeah,
my
that's
understanding.
normal. I mean, that's kind of normal growing up behavior.
Okay, well, it's not. I guess it's different for me because I didn't see my grandparents until like once a year. So
I
that's
mean, yeah, your dynamics were different, and so that's kind of how most of us was raised. Was you hung out at grandparents' house, and your grandparents kind of raised. I mean, like over the summer, that's what I did. But yeah. So you don't think he had good examples? Yeah, I got married at 32. Um,
he's a few years older than me, so he's a little bit older than what I was. And that's
okay.
right after
What do you,
I got married. I turned 33. I just realized, like, I was like, well, why are my numbers coming off like not adding up when I'm thinking about these years or whatever? But we got married like around Thanksgiving time that year, and then my birthday was in December, so I turned 33 right after that. So I was really right at 33 when I got married.
what do you feel that when you said yes, that you were prepared to you was prepared?
Looking back now, knowing what I know about emotional intelligence and other things, I don't think. I mean, I went through like a premarital counseling. His brother happens to
Hmm.
be a minister, by the way. So his brother was a minister, so we went through marital counseling. But let me say this: when we decided we were going to get married, and his mom said, "Are you sure you want to marry him?" That should have been my first clue. That should have been
Yeah.
the red flag that was like.
one
On
hundred
fire.
percent
It's a red flag that was on fire. If your mom
with
said that,
flashing lights around it.
yeah, yeah. So the thing is, like it's the one thing I think you guys talked about this. You and your wife on your show, we talked about that. You guys talked about is every year. This is something that just naturally happened. It wasn't like planned, but every year, right around the anniversary time, we would just kind of assess things and see where where they needed to be, and ultimately, he felt actually my life as a married person financially, I was worse off financially as a married person than I was when I was single. So,
Hmm.
he felt like he said this. He said he felt like he felt like he was dragging me down. He felt like he was dragging me down and he had like a there's something dark. That's I'm trying to think of the right word he used. A dark cloud. He felt like a dark cloud was hanging over him, and that he was dragging me down. So, if you want to get out of the relationship, out of the marriage, I understand because I feel like I'm not really bringing anything to the bring. I'm just saying, lack of a better term, bring anything to the table. I'm bringing you down.
How'd you feel when he said that to you?
Because of going back to what I said earlier, me being the ride or die person. No, we're gonna work this. We're gonna try to make this work. Give it a little bit more time. That kind of thing. Stick with it. But
Hmm.
ultimately, we had a house fire one year and the house was no more, and right around that time is when I guess we kind of like evaluate things. Not long after that we ended up getting separated, so there's a crazy situation that had happened during the time that was going on. We separated. He went his way, I went my way, and then eventually I was like, let's not do this anymore. You can do whatever you want to, you can do your thing and I'm gonna do my thing. The mistake that I made is when you're married, even though you're separated and divorce are not the same thing. So that's like the biggest mistake I ever made in my life is getting involved with someone else months after my separation. Not my divorce, but my separation.
Uh-huh.
Those are not the same thing, and I knew kind of knew better, but not I really really know better now that was not that was very poor judgment to get involved with somebody in before you get divorced. You shouldn't be involved you shouldn't even be
For
looking at
sure.
anybody before you get divorced. So as a result of that situation, a domestic violence situation occurred because of that. Even though he's saying he's okay with it and you can do your thing, I can do my thing, that's not the case. So one thing led to another. By the time everything was finished, I ended up in the emergency room and I had a detached retina. I eventually found out that I had a detached retina. So because he was actually stalking me, he was posting up where I lived at, watching to see who was
Uh-huh.
coming and going and all this other stuff. Of course, I don't know this. And then, like I said, when he found out that I was seeing somebody else, that was it. Even though he
How
said it
long were
was over.
you married?
I was married for 5 years. Well, at that time, we had been married for like 5 years.
Okay. Okay.
But the
And
in
do
between
you do
divorce
you
and
feel that um do you feel that he felt that you were probably seeing this person all the whole marriage is why he reacted the way
no,
that
I
he
don't think I
reacted?
don't no, I don't think that's it. It's just he didn't want to let go. Like I don't know. I've been in a couple of relationships, that one and another one. The other one was like short term, but the person just didn't want to let go. Like so that's why we talk about boundaries and stuff like that. I have certain rules now when it comes to dating, like, and I mentioned this, like I've been on somebody else's platform. It's if I'm dating you the first few times we're dating, I'm not automatically letting you come pick me up from my house because you don't need to know where I live at. I mean, you just don't need to know. And then
Right.
depending on what your attachment style is, you may want to get attached like some of these other people have in the past. So I need to get to know you a little bit better before I even let you pick me up on a date. If we go on a date, we can meet. Where Give me the address and I'll meet you there. It's not you coming over to my house picking me up. It's not gonna happen.
So like so you have so your drama didn't really pick up until your 30s.
Yep, exactly right. I didn't That's the first real challenge I experienced in life. And let me tell you, it was a challenge, man. Like it took me it took me a while to overcome that situation as far as
What
getting back.
was what were some of the things you feel you lost in that? Like what and then what was your process for the road to recovery?
Well, it wasn't so much the lost part. It was just that it's just the emotional part of it, of the violent situation, dealing with self esteem issues, depression, and those kind of things. And that, just give me a minute. That it just took me several years, like before I could like get myself back on track again. I was kind of isolated because I lived alone, and of course I don't live in the same area where my parents live. They live in Louisiana, so a lot of things that happened I really didn't tell a whole lot of people about. I didn't really have very many friends or anything like that. I just kind of was like isolated. I spent time with God. I fasted from time to time. I mean, I think about it now. I haven't done this recently, but there were times where I did like a water fast, which I can't even imagine doing now. Just like not even eating at all, just drinking water, just drinking water for several days or for a week. And have you done that before or no?
Yeah, I've done it. Yeah. I used
Reese,
to do it. Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. You said used to. That's what I'm saying. Like now, I'm
Yeah,
thinking
I
about
still
doing.
occasionally, I mean, like my fasting habits are a lot different now. Um, but I will do I'll do a 3 day, a 7 day, 10 day. You know, when in my heyday when I was single, I was doing those 40 day joints. Not anymore.
Yeah, so now I'm actually on a 21 day right now, but it's a Daniel fast. It's not like what I'm talking about before.
Uh
And
huh.
I look back now, it's like, how did I go like a week or however many days without eating at all? Like, how did I do that? Like, but that's when I was, like I said, completely by myself. I was working part time. I was just trying to connect, get myself together. Basically, is what I was trying to do. So that was, up until I was around, right around 40 basically. So
Do you feel that being isolated? I mean, I know your response is going to be to this. What would you share with somebody right now that is in a similar situation, just got divorced? It might still kind of be, they might be separated, whatever, and they have these self-esteem issues and these depression things going on right now, and they're trying to put the pieces of life back together. What would you share with somebody
I
right
would
now?
say, for me, the biggest mistake, and it's not even, yeah, the biggest mistake I made is just out of ignorance. Like when we were growing up, because you're not that much, just a few years younger than me, excuse me.
Mhm.
That counseling wasn't therapy and counseling were not things that were talked about. My brother
For sure.
had some behavioral issues in like elementary school, so because of that, he was in therapy, but that was never offered to me on any that was never presented to me as something that I should do because of the issues that I'm experiencing in life or whatever. So that made that process take a lot longer than what it should have because I'm just doing it on my own and just praying and praying helps, but sometimes you need some other help besides some other help. So that's why I'm so passionate about what I do now, about the platform that I built. That it wasn't even intentional. Like literally one day I was in Coach Reese's live and I saw something about Men's Mental Health Month. And I was like, oh, Coach Reese, it's Men's Mental Health Month. You should do a panel discussion on men's mental health. And he was like, okay. That was at the beginning of the month, and it was getting towards the end of the month. He wasn't saying anything. I'm like, Coach Reese, you're like, what about this panel discussion? He's like, this is when he was moving, by the way, because he moved to Florida. So he's
Yeah,
like, I'm
yeah.
moving in the process of moving, and I don't really have the time for that. So I was like, you know what? I said, you know what? I'm gonna put it together. So I knew him, and I didn't really know Gumbo, but I was connected to him. So I had been on a couple of his lives or whatever. So I reached out to him, Coach Reese, and then Gumbo referred Keith, the therapist, and then it was just like a referral process. And before you know it, and then that during that time, I went into Mind Your Mentals one Saturday morning. I saw Gumbo was live, and he was in Mind Your Mentals Saturday morning thing that he does, and I was like, oh, I can get that guy to come also. So before you knew it, I had like four or five men. It was an all male panel, and that's how it started. And then from there, I just started thinking about the stuff that I had been through, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna continue to do this, and we're gonna focus on mental health and relationships because I don't want anybody to be. There's some people talking about stuck positions. I don't want anybody to experience a stuck position that I was in for several years because I wasn't able. I just didn't have the resources or didn't even know that I should get a see a therapist or whatever because that wasn't so TikTok. Of course, TikTok wasn't a thing back then, so it just never
Right.
presented to me that that would be an option to try to help my situation.
And the whole thing, like you said, that was like really taboo of back in the day. You're not about to go tell your no therapist your business or no
Nope.
counselor your business. Nah, you take that joint to the grave.
Right?
It's like we didn't share. Even going to the doctor was, I mean, for us was even kind of a little taboo. You come out of a car crash, and if you was able to walk, you just walked around with a limp.
Nah, I did go. Keep in mind, because my dad was in the military, I was seeing doctors and stuff regularly. You just
Right.
therapy,
Yeah, I mean,
therapy just
yeah,
wasn't the thing.
that's so that but so when you started to put the pieces back together, you started to reassess. You're isolated and you're alone. Um, Now, at what was your breaking point to where you said, you know what, this puzzle is back together? How long was that process?
I would say so. I had moved to Athens during this process because I actually got a job there. I was a store manager for a Verizon retailer, and I was doing okay there. But they closed the location, and so I was given the option to go to another location, which the area that it's in I have never been to because I don't even know if they have any African American people that live there. It was like in the
Uh-huh.
mountains of Georgia. I'm like, I'm not doing that. Like, so I took the option of unemployment, and I had been researching becoming a claims adjuster before then. Actually, when the house fire happened, I'd never really been exposed to anybody that was a claim. Of course, I had my car fixed, car accidents or whatever, a couple of those or whatever, but I just never thought about that as a career. But after that, I was like, I'm going to research this, and then I started researching it and saw that it's actually you could make a pretty good income, as a claims adjuster. So when it was time to go on unemployment, that first month, I went hard and I studied the information for the license. I already had a life and health license. Keep in mind because I had that sold insurance for many years off, and so it wasn't like a difficult I knew how the tests are set up or whatever. So that
Hmm.
month I studied for that whole month and did an online program and then got my adjuster's license. Now actually getting a job was another thing. I did some trainings with a couple of companies, got certifications or whatever. But meantime, after that happened, during that process, within a year or so, also actually did my own paperwork and did my divorce. So I finally got my divorce because I hadn't done that because I was so all over the place, with my emotions and just depressed and whatever. Not necessarily depressed all the time. It was like an off and on thing, but just not taking care of things the way I needed to. So I decided I needed to get that taken care of because hey, we haven't been together in almost 5 years and we're still married, so that's not a good thing either. So I officially did that, fill out the paperwork, met up with him, got it notarized, and then went to court and everything, got that taken care of, and then also in the process, uh, one of the people, I'm trying to think how I found out about somebody I knew a person, kind of like we talked about earlier. A lot of these jobs are who you know. So
Hmm.
somebody I knew this guy that knew about this, that worked at this company. It was a sales position, which I had done sales before, like I mentioned, and it was Obamacare, Affordable Care Act plans. So they were doing that as well as dental and vision plans. So you could do like a package deal to offer somebody, a plan. So I interviewed for that job and I got that job and I moved back to Atlanta area. And then from there, things got more stable. Like that's the first year that I did that. I had made the most that I had at any point in any job that I had. So it started off pretty good. However, the company was like, because it was Affordable Care Act, is very seasonal. So it was up and
Hmm.
down for the company. They kept switching compensation plans. Like I've never been through that many compensation plans with any company, period. But I mean, even through it all, still making good, decent money. But the thing I didn't like was I just don't like when people are mistreated. And so I saw some mistreatment of folks, like mentioning the person that I told you I liked. He was a manager, the top performing manager, but also the newest manager. So when they did the downsizing, they got rid of him because he was even though he had the best performing team in the
Mm-hmm.
company, it's because he's the newest manager or whatever. Those other people have like seniority or whatever. So and then so a lot of people. I was never laid off. I actually just I applied for an adjuster position that I saw, which I took like a $20,000 salary cut because I knew that eventually I would make more. And then I didn't know when it would be, but I was just stepping out on faith, and I applied for that position. I got that, and then I switched over to adjusting, and that's what I've been doing ever since then. And I started off as a doing auto adjusting, and that's inside
Mm-hmm.
stuff. I've never been under a car or anything like that. It's all inside. People calling their, helping them settle their claims. So getting their car set up for the body shop and investigating if necessary these accidents and also these payments, because the second company I worked for was like a non-standard, so a lot of people didn't have good credit and a lot of accidents and that kind of stuff, and just really some of the people that were, some of the customers were not good people. I'm just going to say that, use that term good people, since that's what was used earlier in Keith's K Short's video. Not good people. So I can actually remember one time a lady, she had an accident, and there was a the payment was kind of fishy, like when this payment was made versus when the accident occurred, was looking kind of fishy. So I had to do a recorded statement. I did a recorded statement with the guy who owned the vehicle that was hit, because the car was parked. It wasn't even it was a she was moving in her vehicle, but the other car was parked. So he told me his side of the story. I met and told, she and it, interviewed her. She told me her side of the story. The next day, as I was coming in, she calls in, and I mean, I told you I'm no nonsense. People, that lady called in and confessed, Maurice, and told me that she made the payment after the accident occurred, and she just been feeling guilty about it ever since, and that kind of thing. The check was still in the mail room, so I had to go run downstairs and get the mail, get the check out of the mail room, because I was sending the guy his check to get his vehicle fixed. But now that she's admitted that she didn't make the payment, there's no coverage, so gotta call him and tell him. Then she says she's gonna do, she's gonna make it right with him. She's gonna have to pay him or whatever. She's like a hairdresser or whatever. But she,
Mm-hmm.
I let him know, she said she's gonna, get together with you and work it out or whatever. And so, and then I stayed with that one company, the one I was talking about where I did the recorded statements with. Stayed there for like
Mm-hmm.
3.5 years. Probably stayed longer than I should have. And one of my friends that called me, once again, we talking about this, it's coming up more and more. It's like who you know. My friend had called me a few years after I'd been in that job for like maybe like 6 months or so. He had called me about a position. Like, man, I'm not ready for that. Like, it's a job, it's a litigation position, so you deal with attorneys a lot and all. It's like I don't even like attorneys. Man, I don't talk to attorneys all day long. And then so when I got sick and tired of being sick and tired of my other job, with that job, I was like, you know what? Let me call him. So I called him, and this is during COVID, by the way. So things were different. So originally, when he told me about the position, the other thing is, I would have to move to Florida. If I took that position, I was gonna have to move to Jacksonville, because that's where that's where Citizens of Florida is the company I used to work for. That's where the offices were for the people that did their claims for them. So so I called him. He put in him and his wife put in a good word with one of the managers. Got interviewed. Told her I was like, I've never done litigation before, but I feel like I know I can learn it. I'm a fast learner. Got the job and doubled my salary. Doubled my salary moving from that one job to the other.
Mm.
So that was just like, when I saw that happen, I was like, not that I don't know, no, God, I already know that God's amazing and everything, but when you experience something like that, it just like changes your perspective. That happened, and then the next year, maybe like that was in 2021, I decided to go back to school. So I got a second master's. I got a master's in law, and I did straight A's the whole time I was in school. I was just I was in a relationship when I first started the program, but we broke up. He broke up with me. I didn't break up with him. And then after that, that was the first semester of that program, and I just went hard in that program. And so graduation came.
What is a master of law? Does that make you an attorney?
No, That's a JD. JD is a doctorate of law, and you have to have a JD to be an attorney. So this is what I got last year at graduation. So for our program, which is this called a Juris Master JM instead of JD, they give out one award every year to like a person that's graduating. It's a leadership award, and
Uh
so
huh.
it's called the Leading the Way Award. So I was completely in shock when I received this at graduation. So I graduated with like a 4.23 GPA. I think they give A's and A pluses, so I had some A's and some A pluses, But I graduated near the top of my class, and I was given that award as well as a academic excellence certificate as well, and of course my diploma, my degree or whatever. So that was like,
So you like on genius level,
I'm not genius, but I mean, I just worked. I just saw what hard. I always for school most of the time for me came like kind of naturally. I didn't have to work really hard. And so I just, I didn't say I did just enough to get by, because if I did just enough to get by, I would have been making C's. But I wasn't going over the top or anything. But I went over the top when I was in this program, and then just how I felt like after everything was over with, like I'm still experiencing that. Like anytime I'm having a bad day, just look back and I'm like, man, just look what God did. Like He did this, and then last year, he blessed me with I've had a couple of businesses, but last year I did my own business as well. So I made last year was like even more. Like it's I mean, like, God, like, if you obedience, if you do what you're supposed to do, like this is what happens when you
right?
actually do what you're supposed to do. I'm like, if I'd have known that, like I would have figured out a long time ago, been even more in the straight and narrow, not straying off the path and stuff like that, man. Just imagine where I would be now. But yeah, I
It,
just in the last few years, God is just He has just shown me so much. Like that's why I say, like, no, doing wrong, or it's just not. It's like I don't want to mess up my relationship with God at this one. Like I want to stay in good favor with Him and not be doing not doing stuff I ain't supposed to be doing, or testing this out and testing. I just want to, whatever you want me to do, Lord, I want to do it, because this is what it looks like. That's what I want it to be.
so what do you do for fun? Like, I mean, to me, it sounds like you are a very regimented person. That spontaneity is not in that
It's
thing. So
I'm not gonna say it's not. I'm open to spontaneity, but so I mean, fun for me is jumping on live and hosting a live, or coming on your live or somebody else's live. But also, the thing that I've always liked to do a lot that I haven't done recently, which I'm gonna change that. I've always loved to go bowling. So I love bowling, and I was actually, when I was in England the second time, when I was about 9 or 10, I was actually in a bowling league. So I was in a bowling league as a child. But every time my dad would come, like I would do well. But if he showed up, it's like everything was just like I was just like I was just messed
the
up. Like,
pressure,
yeah, the pressure. So I actually had a bowling like, I think my high game was like a 175 or something. I didn't know 300s or nothing like that. But I was a kid also, but not to say I've done 300 as an adult either. But that's one thing I like to do is bowling, and I like to travel. So next year I'm definitely going to be traveling more next year. One of my good friends is going to Hawaii next year, so I'll be going there. That'll be the first time that I went there. I've been a lot of different places, but I haven't been to Hawaii before, so that'll be something different. And I'm supposed to go on a cruise next year as well. So there's a couple of trips I got planned, major trips I got planned for next year. But traveling, bowling, and I like sporting events. Which the last time I went to one, it's been a while as well. I was actually going to go to the Chicago Sky game, because they were going to be playing here. It was last
hmm
month, and of course Angel Reese plays for them. But right before that game, she got injured. So I was like, I ain't paying that kind of money for no ticket to see. She ain't even playing. I'm not even going. Like, those tickets for those games are just as expensive as they are for the NBA games right now.
really.
Yeah, I was like, whoa. Yeah, that's not. Yeah, so they're pretty pricey. Yeah, at this point, but yeah.
So you your life has been pretty pretty straight and narrow, other than the hiccup with the marriage. Um, the domestic violence piece, which probably took way more out of you than you know that then we want to talk about it, and I get that.
Right.
Um, and now you know, so you are landed in this space right here, and so now you are a champion of domestic violence, mental health, and relationships based off of your life and your experience. Um, so what does that look like for you as far as just incorporating that in your everyday life? Are you speaking to people outside of the social media platforms? Are you in panels, or are are you in women's groups,
It
or any
hasn't.
of your local things that's in within the area that you live in? How are you doing it outside of TikTok?
So I haven't, that opportunity hasn't presented itself, and to be honest with you, it's only been, I would say, in the last 30 to 45 days that I actually came out and let people know, because before I'm just doing my thing with the events or whatever. But I don't know if you know where Scrib Nation is, one of the platforms that I participate on. And they was they had this, he usually goes live on Saturdays and Sundays in the morning. And this one Sunday, people were just talking about things that they wanted people to know about them. I was like, you know what? This would be a good time to say that. So I came up there and said it. It was just like complete silence. Like everybody was in shock because people see you and they think you have everything together and that you never been through anything and like you got the perfect life and everything. That is not the case. Like I said, that changed my life completely. A couple of things changed my life completely. That for the you know because I mean it could have been worse because I survived that. Some people don't survive that.
Right.
That's the other, yeah, that's the other thing. So that it could have been a lot worse. So I survived that, and now I could potentially either prevent somebody else from being in that situation by teaching them the signs, like these are things, because even though that happened one time, like that never happened in the marriage, there are other signs, like you have mental abuse. If you, and you sometimes when you're going through it, you don't recognize it, you just think it's whatever. And I didn't recognize that when I was going through that. But when I look back on it now, and the education I received about this kind of stuff, it's like it wasn't all the time, but there was mental abuse. So teaching somebody else something that can prevent them from having to go through the stuff that I went through, that I just feel like if I save one person, every time,
It's worth it.
it's worth it all day long.
100%. Yeah. Um, and that's the reason why I do this is if it touches one person, if one person is able to change, um, it's all worth it. And so right now you are, and I just want to share this with you as far as like the opportunities of outside of the social media realm.
Okay.
Sometimes you got to build your own table.
Okay.
Some like if you have a heart for something and you want to do something, and you're in Marietta, the library has space that you can use, somebody else in that, and you can create what you want to create, and you create it. And it's no different than what you're doing on TikTok. Like there's some platforms that I wanted to stand on that I wasn't invited to, so I created my own platform to until it was comparable to where I wanted to stand, and then then not only did I start get invited to other tables, people wanted to come to my table.
That part, yeah, that's been happening recently as well. So like at the beginning, it had not been difficult, but in certain parts of it, as far as getting the panelists and stuff, I have never been discouraged when it comes to that because I mean I've done sales before, so everything's not going to be yes, yes, yes all the time. But now it's to the point, like you said, they'll send me a message and like I'm interested in participating in one of your panels. Would you consider me or whatever or that kind of thing. So that's when I feel like things have come around. Like I want to get a couple some things in before the end of the year. I'm thinking I don't want to do anything in things December, but I feel like I need to do like one panel in December, like right before, toward the middle of the month, because the holiday season is always chaotic
It's
and people have.
crazy. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
so that's why like I'm doing some as much as I can in November, and in December I'm just shooting for one event and just call it a day.
Oh, well, I'm glad that you asked me to be a part of it. I just want to say, don't do them on Saturday at 6 or 7. You know that's family time. That's
Honestly, normally I don't do it on Saturday. My normal day is on Friday, but there's only been twice, one time so far that I did. Well, excuse me, yeah, two of them that I did on Saturday. One was on with Scrib on his platform. That was like a 2 o'clock, and then the other one, it just worked out. The guy that I did a co-host, and that's the normal time that he has his panel discussions is on Saturday at 7. So there's only been two Saturdays. There'll be one more, but it'll be an early afternoon. It's not going to be at nighttime like like the other ones were. So it's not normal that I would have one on a Saturday. But that particular Saturday is just different. The one I know which one you're talking about. Yeah, that's a little bit different time. But yeah, that's how it worked out for whatever reason.
isn't it amazing how you start to build these relationships off of a social media platform?
It's unbelievable. Like I've never read. I mean, as social media goes, I mean, I participated in. I have accounts on all of them. Don't get me wrong. I'm
Hmm. Hmm.
branded and everything. But on Facebook, I would go on there and just kind of stay in touch with people and post when I was doing. I had a trainer at one point, so when I would post stuff, from when me doing my walk in or gym stuff or whatever on there or whatever. But once I got onto TikTok, I found TikTok right around the time I started law school. So it's been exactly 3 years ago. It was in August, at the end of August, 3 years ago. And I initially just went on to try to learn information. I wasn't there trying to start anything. I just wanted to learn because I just found that there was different things that you could learn that I didn't necessarily know about. And I'm always wanting to learn something, and that's how I found out about ChatGPT. The December that it came out, I saw something on TikTok. I was like, oh man! And I'm a
Hmm.
techie. I'm kind of like a nerd anyway. So I'm not a bookworm, but I'm a nerd because I've not ever been like an avid reader. I do read, but I prefer audio
Audio
book over
book.
reading. Yeah, but I
Yeah.
definitely am always been into technology. So when I saw that, I was like, oh man, I gotta learn that. So man, I do so much with ChatGPT. I'm actually going to be teaching classes on it on how to use it to show up better in social media. So that's something I just
Yeah,
started.
ChatGPT is my friend. Me and my homeboy, we call it the silent partner. It's the silent partner, that the silent consultant. I was
Right.
actually in the beta before they even launched it. So I had been using ChatGPT a whole year prior to it even launching.
What
So
year? What year was the beta?
the beta was 20. I think I got in 21 November of 21,
Okay.
22. Um, yeah, it was a I think I applied for it in November of 21 and then got approved sometime in 22.
Okay. Yeah, that's when I like. That's when when it first rolled out. I guess it was like in November, December of 22, where everybody could access it or whatever.
Yeah.
I've never stopped accessing it since then. So I don't think there's a
Yeah,
day that
it's
goes by
well
that I'm
worth
not
it.
on there.
It I do it helps a lot. It definitely helps a lot. So now your platform is relationships, mental health,
And
and
empowerment and
domestic violence.
empowerment as well. So the
Empower.
empowerment
So
part.
really, it's all empowerment, though. To be
Yeah,
honest with you,
yeah, that's true. That's the one way to look at it.
like if we're laying it down, I just did a discussion with I was on my homeboy's podcast talking about domestic violence and sharing my story, and in that, that's empowerment, like being able
Right.
to share it freely and even go to those dark places, those dark spaces that you don't really let light into too much or let it breathe a lot. being able to, as a man, to be able to go into those spaces and
Man.
share that the domestic violence, to share the things that I experienced. I didn't even say it was domestic violence, more so SA. Um, it was SA. I would, and then I was in a crazy domestic violence relationship in college. But that I mean,
I didn't even know
that's
that. So
crazy.
yeah, you're going to be a good, the panel that's coming up. You're going to be a that's going to be because that's just a lot of guys don't want to get involved with that kind of men. I should say guys, but men don't necessarily.
Men
But
don't We don't want to tell, but that's where the empowerment comes in at. And and everything that you're doing, it all falls under empowerment once people are able to share their story and understand that it's strength in that. you
right,
know that there's strength in being able to share your story, the bads, the goods, like you say, people just see people and see where they are. And the reason why I wanted you to be on here is people that are your new followers, and even some of your old followers, they don't know the journey. you
right.
know they see you pop up on TikTok, they see you, every time you pop up in the room, people acknowledge you and giving you kudos and stuff like that. But they don't know that you came out of a situation. They don't know that you grew up in a military family, and that you traveled around, and that it created an insulation part of you. So now it's hard. I ain't saying this.
Watch.
Relationships that are not connected to you, you can easily cut off. But those relationships that are important to you, because they're few and far between, you are engaged. People don't know that. Now when they see this, people will be able to say, oh, I love her. I love her story. I see that she made it. I see that she's thriving. She's out here. So look, y'all, I want y'all to go check her out. This is her TikTok right here. Pull her up. She actually has a link tree on here as well, and she has some merch that she's selling. So pull her up. If she asks you to be in her panel, if she invites you to her panel, she is about education, and informing people. So if the more knowledge and things that you have, the more empowered that you are. And know that she's going to have something on domestic violence, on mental health, on relationships, even on grief. So her platform is designed to give exposure and give people an opportunity to express themselves and share their story, so that we can be free, that we can be healed, that we can be whole. So go follow her on her social media, pull up her link tree, go buy her sweatshirts and all that other stuff. And if she offers to ask you to be in anything, please participate. Please participate. She is out in these TikTok streets doing big things. And I am just glad that she came and sat and hung out with me for a few minutes. But before we go, I got one last question for you.
Okay.
What is something that you didn't pay attention to when you were younger that you had to learn the hard way as you got older?
Hmm. That's a tough question. That's a tough question. I I'm stumped.
Mm.
You have me stumped. Like I'm sitting here thinking about, and the only thing that comes to mind, but it wasn't really like something that was presented to me. Is I do not know how to swim. So I mean, I think I had like one or two opportunities in life to learn. So that's the only thing I can think of, is that even at 53, I still don't know how to swim, and that's something I would like to learn how to do actually. That and playing chess. That's only been presented to me. I've never learned how all the stuff I've done. Been around the world, learned all this stuff. Don't know how to play chess, and I don't know how to swim. So those are two things that I wish I could have. One guy in college was showing me, but I only had like one or two lessons. I mean, you're gonna learn in one or two times, not chess. So I wish I could have had more lessons for chess and for swimming.
Well,
And
swimming is easy. You can just jump on. I mean, go to your local Y and sign up for a swimming a swimming class. And the chess is easy too because you can just jump online first and play chess online, and then. But you don't really have that kind of time because you out here in these TikTok streets changing the
I mean,
world.
you know, I'm in doctorate programs between TikTok and
Oh
doctorate
yeah, yeah,
programs at
yeah, yeah.
work.
You're in a doctorate
So
program.
so
When will you be finished with that?
at the end of 2026, so 2 years from
Wow,
now, I'll be finished.
wow. And that's going to be a doctorate in.
Business administration.
Okay, and what's your undergrad in?
Undergrad is in
Undergrad's journalism.
journalism and MBA, and then DB. This is called a DBA. Doctor. It's not a PhD, but it's a
Uh huh.
doctorate degree. A doctorate is a professional doctorate degree. Doctor of business administration.
Okay, man. Did Are you done with school after that?
You know, I mean, I'm not gonna say I'm always gonna want to learn stuff, but as far as a formal program, this I mean, like, what else would I get in school? I mean, I plan to do some teaching. You know, I definitely plan to do some teaching, and my focus is on the HR. It's HR and AI. The them those two coming together in relate in terms of recruiting and all the different stuff that
Hmm.
can the bad stuff that can happen when you implement AI into the recruiting process in a bad way. If it's not done properly, what can happen? You know.
So my homeboy just got his doctorate in HR, and his thesis was the onboarding process. I mean, his he had to defend his onboarding process,
Oh wow.
like the process of onboarding, and really lay that thing down. But well, I know that you're going to do well in that because your track record. You know what I'm saying?
Thank you,
Like,
Maurice. I appreciate that.
but in that, in the pursuit of your doctorate, in the pursuit of all these, there is this thing called life and spontaneity. So don't get so locked into and miss the
Learning.
spontaneity of life.
Right, right. Yeah, I'm open to being spontaneous. I'm not adverse to spontaneity. It just doesn't. Yeah, if it presents itself, I'll take advantage of it. You know.
Well, you got anything else you want to say to the people?
No, I just want to thank you for bringing me on to your show. This is a like I told you before we got started. I used to be a journalist, so I used to interview people, but I'm not used to being interviewed. So I really enjoyed this, and I thank you for the opportunity.
Well, look, I'm glad you pulled up. I'm glad that we met in these TikTok streets and developed a relationship. So I'm honored anytime anybody pulls up, and I thank you for taking this time out and hanging out with your boy for a few minutes. Hey, y'all know what it is and what it is and who it is and what we do. I love you like a play cousin. I'm out. Peace.